Welcome back to Around the 412, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am Tyler, and not with me today is my co-host Smitty. He is currently recovering from knee surgery that he had on Friday, so our thoughts are with him. But joining me today is my good friend Eddie Provident from the Mad Chat and Eddie Show, also on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Eddie, after that Steelers game, how's it going, man? How you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot better than Smitty's feeling, I think. But
probably for sure. He's very immobile right now.
In hockey terms, he's out longer term with a lower body injury. So yeah, we don't, that's all coaches giving us on Smitty. But no, I'm doing all right. I mean, as good as you can be after a showing like that from the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. That was a rough one.
It was, and honestly, I can't say that I didn't project this one to happen this way, because last week on our good friend Jordan's show, I said the Steelers were going to lose. I think I said the final score is going to be like 20-13, which, I mean, 24-10, not too far off. But the main reason for that was just because I had no faith in the offense whatsoever, and I think
you didn't have any faith in this offense?
Oh, sorry. That's probably a shock to people.
I know, right?
That's probably a hot take right now.
It was rough, dude.
It was very rough. I think the biggest problem is I was getting flashbacks of 2019, and the only issue with that is in 2019 we had Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges at quarterback, and now we have Ben. We've got a new offensive coordinator. And we've got new faces all over the board, which I guess on the offensive line, it's not very, very much a good thing. But we were expecting a lot more from this unit, I feel like, and we're just not getting it. And it was very much shown today how just across the board offensively, this team's just terrible. And it's not just originally we thought it was the offensive line, but it's not just them. It's Ben too, and the play calling.
But I think what it comes down to is at the end of the day, and maybe I look at football from a little bit more of an old school mentality, but I think everything starts and ends with your offensive line. So if your offensive line is bad, it's going to change your play calling. It's going to change how your quarterback decides that he's going to run the offense. It's going to change how the running back runs. I mean, dude, Naji Harris the team averaged 2.9 yards per carry today but here's the thing, it was on 14 carries. So what they're doing is the offensive line is so bad that they're digging themselves in the holes early to where they can't establish the run. And so because they can't establish the run, teams are, I mean, it was a third down and I saw 8 guys in the box for Cincinnati, because they knew that it didn't matter how many of the guys they put in the box. They were going to get to Ben Roethlisberger so fast that he wouldn't have time to look down the field to any other receivers. I've never seen anything like this. Like, I mean, this is, I really thought that Matt Canada was going to bring something different, because while I was at training camp, I was there for pretty much the entire time. There was a lot of different looks. They were getting Derek Watt involved. They were using him as a blocker. They were using Derek Watt on wheel routes. They were getting him involved into the offense. They were moving 4 guys. Just go look at Nick Faraball's articles from training camp. Look at Dale's articles from training camp. They were moving 4 guys at the same time as far as pre-snap motion goes. It looked creative. It looked like the first 5 or 6 weeks of last year's season. And now all of a sudden, it's the exact same thing that Randy Fichtner was running. I don't see a difference between this offense now and the offense of the last 6 weeks of last year.
No, it looks like that Matt Canada just took the playbook from last year and basically copy and pasted it, and which is completely different than what we thought we were getting. We thought with Matt Canada,
so bizarre, man.
Yeah, we thought we were getting a completely revamped offense with new schemes and everything, and what you were talking about that we saw in training camp. And it's like the season happened, and we immediately just went back to that Randy Fichtner offense, very predictable, and with the Steelers' offensive line and the offensive struggles that they've had, very one-dimensional. They just cannot run the football.
Yeah, and it's not the running back, because Naji had 14 catches for 102 yards on Sunday. He caught the ball out of the backfield well. When he had the ball in his hands, he made things happen. I mean, when he has the ball in his hands, this dude is a legitimate threat to go all the way every time. He's impressive when he has the football. The problem is the offensive line can't move anyone to give him space. And so I honestly, I don't know what you do, because part of me wants to sit back and say, okay, well, look at who they had out today. Even like, just look at the defensive side of the ball. They're missing their top 2 edge rushers. So, I get that side of it, and you're not going to expect this offense to carry you, even if it's against the Bengals. But one of the things that we said going into this week, and I know that Smitty, myself, and DK talked about it on Steelers Today on Thursday. This was supposed to be a battle of the 2 worst offensive lines in football, and the Bengals offensive line gave Joe Burrow time. They gave him enough time to make plays. If you look at the second Jamar Chase touchdown, the one across the middle, he had about 3.5, 4 seconds to throw the football, but he had a pocket to step up into and give Jamar Chase time to cut across the field, because Jamar Chase is going to outrun Joe Hayden. Once he makes that turn, he's going to outrun Joe Hayden every time. And that's no knock on Joe Hayden. That's just how fast Jamar Chase is. He's going to do that to most defensive backs in the NFL, let alone a guy that's a little older. And to the offensive line of the Bengals' credit, Burrow had time to wait for that to happen, step in the pocket, and make a really good throw. And it was like taking candy from a baby at that point. And the Steelers' offensive line is not affording, and we can spend the whole next segment on Ben if we want to, but the Steelers' offensive line is not giving Ben Roethlisberger time or a pocket to step up into, and that is a lot of the problem.
Yeah, whenever your quarterback is forced to throw the ball within 2.5 seconds, that's not going to get very productive offensive stats. And I think that you mentioned Najee Harris, how great of a talent he is, and the problem with him running the ball, and listen, he had some nice runs today. They were all called back
on holdings.
On holdings. The one that he had 1 20-yard run, but then that means he had 13 carries for 20 other yards, which is terrible. And it's not his fault. None of this is Najee's fault. I love Naji, but he was not the right pick at 24, and I will stick with that. I'm
100% with you.
I can't stress that enough. I wanted a tackle. I wanted an offensive lineman. I get it's not the sexy pick, but when you have no line to run in front of, the running back cannot do it all on his own. Najee is a great talent. He was a top running back in this class, but he is not skilled enough, no player is, to just be able to make up for the 5 guys in front of you not being able to block.
Yeah, that's what I said on Chad and I's show on Wednesday, that I love Najee Harris. Everything about Najee Harris, I think, he is the face of a franchise. He's going to be the face of the franchise. He is the kind of guy that, he walks in the room and he's electric. He makes people smile. He makes people laugh. He is everything that you want in an athlete. That is what Najee Harris is. And that's off the field. On the field, he's probably even better than he is off the field, which is hard to do for a kid like him. And with all of that, I still agree with you 100% that they should have went offensive line in the first round. They probably should have gone offensive line in the first 2 rounds. But yeah, to not take an offensive lineman until the 3rd round and then have it be an interior offensive lineman, granted a center, but your weakness on this offensive line is tackle. You have a Hall of Fame bound 39-year-old quarterback who can't move anymore. His arm is not his problem. It's his knees. It's his mobility.
It's very noticeable.
Yeah. And to not get a tackle in here, to go into the season with Zach Banner, who is questionable, Chuks Okorafor, who is less than questionable, and a rookie who I think will be good eventually, but an unproven rookie in Dan Moore Jr., that was I don't have words for it.
Yeah, that was the biggest question mark going into the season were they going to move into this season with this offensive line attack, and they did. And I just the comments after yesterday's game that Tomlin still believes in these guys. I'm like, well, Tomlin, that's great, but these guys stink. There's no other way around it. I don't know how you can look at this group 3 weeks in and say that you still believe that this group of players can be good.
Yeah.
Not to mention that Kendrick Green also got hurt today. And speaking on the offensive side, Juju also got hurt with a rib injury. He came out. Kendrick Green was out, and then Chuks Okorafor had a concussion. But I was expecting probably next week he was probably going to come out anyway because he's been awful. And Zach Banner should be coming off IR and be coming back next week. But this offensive line is literally the bane of my existence right now. And the offensive as a whole, I keep saying the offensive line, and all of us do, because it's very well warranted.
Because that's where it starts. It starts and then it spreads from there.
Yeah. But them being terrible is making Ben look terrible. It's making Naji look terrible. I mean, Ben, not even just Ben looking terrible. Ben is making some questionable calls, I think, as well.
Was it the second interception of the second? Yeah, that one was just. I'm not a quarterback. I've never played anywhere near like high level football, so I'm not going to sit here and say you should see that linebacker. But I mean, dude, you have been in the league now for 18 seasons, and you don't make that read. Like, I'm sorry, I can't sit here and like bash the offensive line as much as we're bashing them, and then watch Ben Roethlisberger make that play, and then say, well, he's Ben, he'll be fine. No, that was, dude, it was bad. I mean, you're supposed to be, a savvy quarterback from the neck up because you're in your 18th year of football or 19th year of football, and you make that read. There's the difference between a guy like him and a guy like Brady. And again, I think Ben's a Hall of Famer. But when you're talking about that next tier of quarterback, especially older in age, there's your differences right there.
Yeah, I think we're seeing more and more signs that this should and probably will be Ben's last year.
Yeah.
But real quick, before we get to the break, just wanted to recap. What do you think of the defense overall? We were missing a lot of guys, especially in that front unit. We were missing TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, like you said. Tyson Alu, we didn't bring it up our show last week because it wasn't confirmed. But out for the season with a broken ankle, which, I mean,
prayers up for him, man. That was a hard one to watch.
Yeah, and that stinks for the Steelers because now you're going with a unit of Chris Wormley, Isaiah Loudermilk, Carlos Davis, a bunch of other guys trying to make up for the loss of him.
Saw a lot of Bugs today, which I think Bugs is actually a serviceable guy, but I mean, he's not Alualu. He's not,
Yeah, for sure. And then we haven't had stuff onto it, but just the lack of him being out there is very noticeable as well. But just what are your thoughts on the overall performance of the defense today?
I actually thought the defense wasn't terrible. I thought that you could tell that there was a lack of a pass rush. And I mean, that was going to be the difference in the game. Could they get to Joe Burrow? Could they knock Joe Burrow down? Could they make life tough for Joe Burrow? And they didn't. The only thing that concerned me, and I'm going to give them the benefit of a doubt on this, is the chunk plays that the Bengals were able to get in the running game. I'm going to give them the benefit of a doubt and say it's because of the injuries. But if that starts to become a trend, this is a season going and trending the complete opposite direction it needs to be trending. I thought that aside from 2 or 3 big plays in the passing game, they actually weren't too bad. I didn't think they were terrible. That one. Now this is 2 weeks, and actually Tomlin talked about this in his post-game presser. It's 2 weeks in a row now in a big moment on third down they let up a deep touchdown. So they've got to do something to make sure that they're, whether it's that safety help. And then I know last week Minka was supposed to be the safety help on the Ruggs touchdown.
Yeah.
But he bid on he was playing aggressive on Waller, bid on that pump fake. It happens. But now this is 2 weeks in a row that they've got burned deep twice. So they have to make sure that they know, they pick up and film what's going on with that, figure out why it's happening. I haven't had a chance to watch any of the film yet because the all 22 hasn't been put out yet. So I don't really know what the cause was. I don't know where the blown coverage was on that, if it was just a nice play by Jamar Chase. But that's the two concerning things: the chunk plays in the running game and the big plays and big moments in the pass, against the pass.
Yeah, and I think going into this game, we kind of knew that the Bengals offense, even though their offensive line is the weakness of it, we knew that this unit could put up points. And so I think giving up 24 points to the Bengals is not as shocking as probably a lot of Steelers fans would imagine. It's just the Steelers weren't able to keep up. But yeah, I think the chunk plays probably in the running game have a lot to do with the injuries along that front seven.
Yeah.
I think getting TJ, Alex back, and then whenever Tuitt comes back, that will definitely help with that. But yeah, overall, the defensive effort today, I don't think it was bad. I think it was similar to last week where you can't really put any blame on them. They tried to do their best to keep the Steelers in the game. The offense was unable to keep up with what they could do, and you have injuries across the board that wasn't helping anything. Yep. But yeah, so that was a terrible game. But now we're gonna have to talk about what we think of the future of this team moving forward from this. Started with a 1-2 start, but that'll be up after our break. And you're listening to Around the 412 on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. All right, welcome back to Around the 412 on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. So, Eddie, what do you think of this team after this game? Your thoughts moving forward? What is your projection for the rest of the season? Because I'll be honest, it's a lot different than what I thought the season was going to look like with the loss to the Raiders the following week and the Bengals yesterday. I just think that this team is in a different spot than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, man. Going into the season, I had tempered expectations. After we beat Buffalo, I kind of started to fall into that week one, like everything's great, you know?
Yeah.
Now that we've had 3 weeks to look at this team, I'm not as gloom and doom as everybody, I think, wants to be. Because I do think that a lot of the issues we're talking about are due to a lack of chemistry on the offensive line, a lack of experience on the offensive line and the offense in general as a whole, and injuries on defense. None of the injuries are, aside from Tyson Alualu, are long-term. The offensive line, if it is a situation of chemistry and experience, is only going to get better. Now, is that good enough to do anything? None of us know. But it's not going to be, I don't think they're going to go backwards. So
there's not much room to go backwards.
right. And like Tomlin said, like the first day of training camp, his first media availability, Mike Tomlin was asked about, wanting to run the ball more in the offensive line and everything. And Tomlin's answer to it was so good. But it was like, well, we didn't set the bar very high last year. So, I mean, they're kind of in the same boat after 3 weeks. So do I look at this team as a playoff team? If they make it to the playoffs, it's going to be as a wild card. I don't think that I had them winning the division going into the season, and after seeing them for 3 weeks, that they're not a division winning team. Do I think that they can still squeak in as a wild card? Yeah, I think that's possible. I think the AFC is very top heavy. I don't think after those first 4 or 5 teams, there's really anything to like write home about. So yeah, I could see them making it as a wild card team, but so that's the optimistic side for me, is that a lot of these problems are fixable and they're not long-term problems.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of it is we can keep saying that and saying that and saying that, but now we're getting into week 4 and they play Green Bay, and Green Bay is pretty tough. If they lose to Green Bay and we just keep saying the same things, now you're digging yourself a bigger and bigger hole that you're not going to be able to climb out of. So yeah, man, I think realistically right now, they're a 9-8 football team, maybe 10-7 if they can figure out the offensive line stuff enough, maybe. But realistically,
you're very hopeful.
Realistically they're 9-8, 8-9. I mean, if everything gels and they get everybody back healthy, I could see this defense stealing a few games. And that's why I think that like this defense at its full potential, when they're healthy and all guns going, I can see this defense rattling off a really good stretch of games. But if they don't get healthy, this team's in trouble. And so the offense, this is where I'm at. I'm in the same place I was 3 weeks ago from this standpoint. As long as the offense doesn't lose you any games, which they did today with 2 turnovers and just not moving the ball at all. As long as the offense doesn't lose you games and the defense can win you games, this is a competitive football team. But if that defense is not 100%, don't trade the first round pick.
Man, I'll be honest. I'm a lot more doom and gloom than you are. And I'll be real. I mean, I've been having a couple hot takes as the past few weeks when it comes to the Steelers anyway, but I'm a lot more on the doom and gloom side. I just think that the flashbacks of 2019 are too apparent to me. And even though Ben is the quarterback, it's a different offensive coordinator and all that. There's so many new faces. Flashbacks. It doesn't matter. I'm just seeing the picture that you're describing of the defense is going to have to keep us in games and win some games for us, which they did in that 2019 season. And I feel like at best, like you're saying, this team is probably a 500 team, which they can't be 500 because of the 17 games now, but they're like a 9-8, 8-9 team at best right now because this offense is just terrible. I mean, you're going to be having to keep teams under 14 points to win a game, and that's just not acceptable. You can't trust the offense. And looking at the remainder of the schedule, when you're looking at these teams, who are they realistically going to put up more points than if the defense can control them? The Lions?
So let me ask you this then, because this is the standpoint I'm coming from. So I'll explain my thought process and then I'll ask you my question.
Okay.
When they're healthy, they should have Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris. At any given time, those kind of guys on the field, right? That's a lot of skill
for sure
on offense. Ben, as long as, and there's the caveat, as long as he has time to throw the football, doesn't have to be Ben Roethlisberger from 2013, 2014, 2015. Ben Roethlisberger just has to be a game manager and get the ball off to these guys and let them make plays. So here's the question to that then. I just rattled off all of those names. We agree that Najee Harris is the real deal, it looks like, after 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Are we maybe looking at the rest of those names through Yinzer goggles?
Maybe a few of them. But I'll be honest, Chase Claypool has been terrible through the first 3 weeks.
Chase Claypool was my favorite player last year, and I want to like him so bad, but he hasn't given me a reason to this year.
No. So with him, Ebron, don't even get me started on him. He just sucks. He cannot catch the ball. He had another couple drops today towards the end of the game. I can't deal with him. Pat Freiermuth, I still believe in. I still think he's going to be a really solid tight end. Deontay Johnson, again, I think he's a really good wide receiver, and along with Juju. I believe Juju and Deontay, they're legit wide receivers. I think we've seen the skill that those guys possess. They're very different receivers, but I think both of them in their own right have earned the respect of the fan base, and rightfully so. And then Freiermuth, I think it's too early to tell, but with Chase Claypool, we had such high hopes after the season he had last year. Through 3 games this year, I don't even know if does he look better than what James Washington would look like as a wide receiver 3. I can't really say. He's the Megatron kind of build of a receiver, but he doesn't play like it, and he's been dropping the ball. I don't know what to make of him. But the thing that you said that is the key to the whole thing is that Ben would have to have time to facilitate the ball. And that is the biggest problem, is that I just don't think he's going to get the time. I don't think this offensive line is going to magically improve. Even if they get the chemistry, you can have great chemistry with people and you can still be bad players. Yeah. I really think that this offensive line, they could get good chemistry. I just don't think the skill level is high enough on this offensive line to be a good group. And when you factor in that the Matt Canada offense that we thought was going to be revamped is basically a 2.0 of the Randy Fichtner offense that we were used to, I just don't see this offense being able to put up the points to win the games.
Yeah.
And with Ben not being able to move like he did, as you mentioned, and not having the time, he's not going to be able to facilitate to these guys. And it's going to be another year of these 5-yard passing routes and a bunch of dump offs to Najee Harris. And this is not going to win you games.
Do you know what was super concerning to me today with the offense?
Yeah.
Sunday. My brother and I we're sitting down, and it's 4th down and 10. We're down by, the Steelers are down by 2 touchdowns, and they're inside the 15, 20 yard line. I think it was 4th and 10 from the 11 or 12 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And I look over to my brother and I said, they're going to dump this ball off. And he was like, no, it's worth it. They got to get they're going to dump the ball off. They checked down. Now, it looked like a screen pass call to Naji. Now, that was concerning enough. What was more concerning is after you watch the replay and you see that was a check down by Ben.
Yeah.
They were in a blitz formation. The Bengals showed blitz. Ben panicked, I think. I can't say that for certain. I don't know that Ben actually panicked. But it looked like Ben panicked, saw that blitz formation, dumped it to Naji, and everybody backed off. And it was like the Steelers played right into the Bengals' hands on that. What that tells me is Ben has no trust that offensive line can give him enough time to get that ball downfield, even on 4th and 10 down 2 scores. That is the most concerning thing out of this football game for me today. And that, if I'm going to be gloom and doom, more to where you're going, that's the play that makes me think, oh boy, we're in trouble. We are in serious trouble as a fan base if this is going to be what we see from the Steelers, because he had no confidence in his offensive line to make a block for him when the blitz was sent. And the Bengals knew it. The Bengals knew that's where it was, and they played it perfectly. So not only did Matt Canada get out-coached on that, but Ben Roethlisberger showed his cards on what he really thinks of the offensive line on that play.
Rightfully so, too. I mean, he
he
shouldn't have trust in this offensive line.
I would have been in the same boat
as
the
quarterback. I'm like, these guys are not going to block for me. So I can't blame him, and I know the exact play you're talking about. It was towards the end of the game. It was, and Naji just gets tackled by like 5 guys. And again, that's something you can't blame Naji for.
No.
It's just he just can't do everything.
My gut reaction was to tweet that call was hilariously bad because I thought it was a screen pass. But then you watch the replay. I watch, Chris Carter and Nick Faribault and a few other guys that I follow on Twitter made the correct statement that wasn't a screen pass out of the huddle. That was a check down or a hot read by Ben. That's more concerning than the alternative to me. Like it's almost like I would have expected that play call, the way the game was called. But then to see that, nope, that was Ben making that check down hot read. Like that's more concerning. Like honestly, to me, the more I think about that, the more that is that is the takeaway from the game, that the quarterback has no confidence in the offensive line to do their job when the game's on the line. If that's the case, it's going to be a long, long football season.
And that's the reason that I'm going to say I think the Steelers are lucky if they win 6 games. I will be honest. That's where I'm at with this. I'm looking at their schedule right now, and I do not see a lot of teams that they're going to beat, especially in the back half of the schedule. Starting with that Chargers game, you have to play the Bengals again, who you just lost to in Cincinnati, and then you've got that 6-game gauntlet of Baltimore, Minnesota, Tennessee, Kansas City, Cleveland, Baltimore. With what I've seen from the Steelers, I don't expect them to win any of those games.
If this team is above 500 at the end of the season, if they hit the 9-win mark, this will end up being one of the best defensive performances in NFL history, in my opinion. To get this offense,
it would
past
have
900. Yeah,
we thought 2019 was 500.
Great. Yeah, this is what this reminds me of, and I'm 32. I wasn't around for this, but just you read the stats, you watch the the videos, you listen to the stories. My dad's a huge Steelers story. He can tell you the most random facts about the old Steelers teams. But if you ask any of the if you listen to any interviews, or listen to any of the old Steelers talk about those 70s teams, do you know which team they say is the best?
No, I don't.
76. So they won the Super Bowl in 74 and 75. They lost to the Raiders in the playoffs in 76, and I can't remember who. I think they lost to the Raiders again in 77, then won in 78 and 79. If you, to a man, talk to those Steelers teams, that 76 team was the best team out of all of them. That defense that year had 6 shutouts. There was a 9-game stretch where they'd let up like 20 points in 9 games.
That's crazy.
That right? Like that is absurd to me. And I'm going to look that up. But yeah, to a man, they all say that team, those defenses that defense was the best of them all. And I think that if the Steelers are going to be any kind of good this year, that's the kind of, maybe not on that level, but that's the kind of thing we're going to be looking to see from the Steelers defense for them to actually make any kind of noise.
And the thing is, these guys got to get healthy. They're not going to do that if this front seven continues to stay injured. But I agree with you, though. The only way that this team is going to win games is with their defense. Because I've said it for the past 3 weeks. And after the Bills game, even though they won the game, Smitty and I continued to talk about how bad the offense was. They started to pick it up in that second half of that Bills game, but overall they were still terrible. And with these last 2 weeks, it's the same case. The fact that they were able to score more than 20 points against the Bills is shocking to me.
Yeah.
But this past week, scoring 10 points against the Bengals, who I mean, their defense has been improving, but it's not like they have the Steelers defense, for example, who got 24 points scored on them. I can't make sense of it. I just think that the defense is going to have to win them games, but I don't think they're going to be able to, because even if the Steelers defense holds every game to 14, 17 points, like every single team to that, I don't trust the Steelers offense to be able to keep up, which is so sad.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about the Killer B era, where we were averaging so many points on offense, and then we didn't have a defense. It was just completely flip-flopped. Now we have a defense. We don't have an offense. Yeah.
Well, let's real quick before we end this episode, we'll go on like a positive note here. So I did find those that 76 season. So this is the kind of defense we're talking about here. This is what we need the Steelers of 2021 to look like. So the 76 Steelers started off 1-4, and this was before the 16-game season. So they finished 10-4. Or I'm sorry, they started off 1-4. They go 10-4 and then lost to the Raiders in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That stretch where they went 9-0, okay, beat the Bengals 23-6, beat the Giants 27-0. Beat the Chargers 23-0. Beat the Chiefs 45-0. Beat the Dolphins 14-3. Beat the Oilers 32-16. Beat the Bengals 7-3. Beat the Buccaneers 42-0. Beat the Oilers 21-0. And then finally the Baltimore Colts scored 2 touchdowns against them. The Steelers beat them 40-14 before they lose in the playoffs to the Raiders. So in a span of 9 weeks, it was 6 points, 0 points, 0 points, 0 points, 3 points, 16 points, 3 points, 0 points, 0 points, 14 points.
So basically, we just have to hold everybody to under double digits.
Yeah.
And we're going to win games.
We've done it once before in the franchise. We could do it again.
We could do it again. Exactly.
But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take that kind of historic for this team to, listen, it's not looking good. It's not looking good, Steeler fans. It's not looking good.
Nope.
I wish I had better news.
Listen, we're pretty much at rock bottom right now.
Yeah.
I would say, especially against the Bengals. That's the first game they lost at home against the Bengals since 2015. So it's only up from here. There's only brighter days ahead, hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully we get some of these guys back from injury this week and
starting with Smitty.
Yeah, especially Smitty. We need him back, but see what we can do against Green Bay next Sunday. But yeah, thanks for tuning into Around the 412 on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Also, thank you to Eddie for filling in for Smitty, the injured boy. But great stuff. Go check out their show, Mad Chad and Eddie, on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And
Wednesdays at 2.
Yep, Wednesdays at 2. Ours are Monday at 2. It's a bunch of variety show. They talk about everything just like we do. But
Yep.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.
Like and subscribe and all that fun stuff.
Oh yeah,
man.
Like and subscribe on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Twitter. What is the Twitter handle for that?
DKPS Podcasts.
DKPS Podcast. Go subscribe on YouTube. Go subscribe to all the channels on Spotify, Apple, Megaphone, wherever you listen to this.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Ty. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody.